excited to go live together with a secret guest who's maybe not so secret anymore because and hopefully that's gone through. Hello. Hey, Kylie. That's hopefully working. And let's see. You need to accept the invite. So hopefully that works. Let me try it again. Yeah, you've been invited. So whilst we're waiting for Kylie to accept the invitation, because it's not always that easy to figure out how to do the tech stuff, those of you who are watching live, because I've been sending out this invitation to my mailing list, and let me just see, go live. There we are. So whilst we're waiting for that to work, we're going to talk about when is the right time to invest in your well-being. Is it before or after we are feeling on the brink of burnout, or actually have experienced burnout? That's not exactly what you want, is it?
Hi, Michaela, I'm in. Can you hear me?
I can indeed hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay, sorry. Right.
Well, if at least we can hear you, can everyone else hear Kylie as well? And there's a couple of people watching. Hey, Jen, you watching? Can you hear Kylie?
Oh, brilliant. So it's just you that can't see me, Michaela.
Okay.
Still hear you.
Never mind. Let's just go then. And hopefully that's recorded as everyone else being able to see you as well. So why are we here today? We're going to talk about when is the right time to invest in our well-being. And what do we do if we're actually sitting with these thoughts of, I do want to do something for myself. I do want to consider things like coaching or therapy. I'm just not sure. And there's a lot to choose from. So I've invited Kylie to come and talk to me about her experience of being one of the OGs of BurnBright. That you've done actually 3 rounds of my program. When it first launched, you were one of the first cohorts to join. So I wanted to invite you to talk about that today.
I would love nothing more than to talk about BurnBright.
I love that. So let's start with, if you can remember, when back in 2022 in the autumn, when you first had a conversation with me about BurnBright, remember those feelings you had about joining, how, maybe there were some concerns or some worries, both about maybe being in a group and maybe considering like there's quite a big chunky investment to make in yourself. Can we start on that point of how it feels to invest time, energy and money in yourself?
Is probably the short answer to that question. But I think, what was very key for me was the trust that I'd built in you. And that was through I'd been a listener on your podcast for a little bit. And there was something about your pause, purpose, play that I guess connected with me. And I can't remember how I found your podcast, but I'm very glad I did. Then I followed you on Instagram and then I signed up to your mailing list. And there was something about the way that you were talking, that the person you were writing about in your emails in particular was me. And I've said to you before, it felt like you could sort of see into my soul a little bit, as like, oh, how did you know what was going on in my, like, how do you know that was what I was thinking? And the reason I actually sort of pressed yes, I do want a 20-minute chat with you was because of the last email that you sent was the day before BurnBright was due to start, I think. And obviously I'd left it like right up to the last minute pondering. And you said in the email to your mailing list, don't do this to please me. And I think what I realized is the barrier to me talking to you was because I knew if I talked to you because of my people-pleasing piece, I would want to buy it, whether, to be honest, regardless of what you said, almost. And then weirdly, the fact that you sent that email was actually the trigger to speak to you. It was a lot of money. And I think that's kind of stating the obvious. But actually, I don't know if it is a lot of money when you look at some of the other things that are for sale on, these group coaching programs. And the reason I put my trust in making the investment in what you were selling, remembering at the time it was that original cohort. We had no sort of social proof or testimonials. And it was the trust that you were the combination of the psychologist and a coach. And that's kind of where I felt that you can't always rely on titles, but I did feel that you had that credibility to safely evidence, based on evidence, structure a program that would work. So the beginning program, you'll remember very well, was only 3 months. So it was a bit cheaper. So the barrier was a bit lower because it was shorter. But yeah, here we are kind of 3 cohorts in. And it is a tough, it's totally tough. And there's an element, if someone hasn't worked with you before, there's an element of suck it and see.
Yeah, it can be really tricky to know, is that the right thing to go for then? Is a big investment? And what do you think was the big difference when you did it for 3 months compared to the 6 months?
Everything. So I don't think this is a spoiler. I think you're very clear that you do pause, purpose, play, month on month on month, and then rinse and repeat. And the difference in the second program, the 6-month program, was I had so much resistance in the first few rounds actually to purpose. Do you remember? And it just gives you, the first 3 months gives you an opening up to these possibilities. And some of these are quite weird, feel quite stressful, in that it's kind of permission, it's compassion, it's play. That one was quite weird, to play. And so the first 3 months is sort of the introduction. And then the second 3 is kind of where you start to feel like it's maybe in your brain. And I've seen that again in this third round that we've just completed, is that the 3 to 6 month piece is the cementing of changing. I think we've all sort of said the rewiring of our brains and sort of believing the concepts a bit more. So 3 months, very helpful, but really just an introduction.
Yeah, I love that difference of, may we do something the first time. This is why I sort of obviously with my cogwheels turning, I pondered and pondered and pondered, how do I want it to be? Do I want it to be 2 months in pause, 2 months in purpose, 2 months in play? But I decided to do it with the rinse and repeat, simply because we go deeper the second time. That repetition that we have, this is how we learn anything, from French glossaries to how to paint. We need to repeat these habits over and over and over again. So that meant that when we came into purpose the second time, for you specifically as well, it was like, oh, okay, I've already sat in the mud with this. This was hard work. I've kind of labored it, and look at where it's got you. Look at the changes you've made since being in this program. So knowing that 3 months might feel an easier yes, because it's a cheaper investment, it actually doesn't cement it quite the same way. And that's why I changed it from being 3 months, like if only the first edition was, to now being 6 months, because I just noticed from the feedback that you were all giving me that it just needed to be longer. So that means it's even more important to have conversations with those of you who have been through it, so we can say to the other women listening who are sitting there like, oh, can I put this much money and time and effort into myself? Yes, you can, because you are all deserving of that. Where did that turn for you when you sort of went from actually investing in the 3 months and then the 6 months? How did you keep giving yourself the permission to do so?
Actually, the second round was a no-brainer for me, because I'd seen the first round. So by the time it got to the decision about the second round, it was really, it didn't take anything, because I had the proof already as to what it had done. So I didn't need to really think about it. I realized that I did miss some of the reservations I had, which we can go back to if you'd like at some point, around the group coaching and the online. I was very nervous of it being online. But yeah, the second time I knew what I was getting into. I trusted your guidance, and actually I saw the benefit of being in a group. So what I loved about the group is it makes time with you cheaper, because, there's a few of us, but the quality doesn't drop, and the personal bit's still there because of the milestone check-ins. So I'm still getting everything from me, and so much about the inner workings of me.
Yeah.
But the group piece it's actually not just about reducing the cost, although that's very welcome. It's actually the value of the group connection. I mean, skipping ahead to the third BurnBright, BurnBright carried me through those months of burnout. And of course, a huge part of that was your support. But it was actually the support of my fellow BurnBrighters that, really, really helped me through that as well. And so obviously, your tools and everything, and you are very important. They are very important too, that group element. And I saw the power of the group in round 1. And these are different groups every time. So now 3 groups in, every group has been special in a different way. So yeah, it was, I've lost track of the question at this
That's okay.
point.
We were talking about how hard it is to kind of make that decision between individual coaching and group coaching as well. Like, you were pondering what you needed. I know you've had individual coaching in the past, and I was like, oh, if I join a group, it's like I'm going to get less time then, and they're not going to know me as intimately. So that's why I added in the master calls of having like a 60-minute onboarding call to really get to know each of the women. And that's why I limited it to be such a small container, simply because, everyone then always gets to speak on every single call. So it's not like, oh, I got 5 minutes with the coach today, but actually everyone gets proper attention. And I know every single person individually really well as well. So I know some masterminds, there are like 30, 40 people on a call. Like, how can the coach even keep track of who's who? And I just didn't want that. I wanted BurnBright to be my inner circle. And that's why I added in the home retreats as well, because like you, I missed that in-person connection bit as well. They're optional because not everyone will live close enough. But how have you found that made a difference when you've got to spend a whole day in the company of the other women in the group? Once at the beginning and once at the end of each round? How did that feel? Because that wasn't there in the first 3-month program. That came in the 6-month program.
I do think that in-person piece takes connection to another level. And I don't think there's any way of getting around that. It is just something as simple as like realizing you're actually quite short, which is great.
We're all really short.
Oh yeah, everyone was really short.
We're all 5'2", aren't we?
And I certainly remember in the second, there was something, actually both times, some things came up and we were able, the relationship was deeper after those in-person retreats. So I think if you can attend, they absolutely are, huge value add, but they're also a cherry on the top. The connection is still there, but it was so lovely to just give everyone a hug, and because the connection is there.
It's lovely, isn't it? And we get to spend that time longer together as well. And so it might also be the fact that we actually spend hours and hours in the practices as well. It's not just here's 90 minutes squeezed in your workday, but it's actually, we've dedicated the whole day. And I guess that's a surrendering piece into it. Like, we're accepting that this is my time. The current cohort, we're all busy working mums. So it's like, oh, someone else gets to serve me tea and cake. And I love waiting on you. And you were like, shall we help tidy up? I'm like, no, you're not clearing your dishes. You're lying down having a rest. And I love doing that. How has that been for you, kind of to receive that care, kindness, and compassion from not just from me in the group, but also from the other group members?
Yeah, I think there's a few exercises that kind of stand out for me, where the level of warmth and compassion from people who, it's weird, they know you so well and yet don't know you at all at the same time, and to receive these things from them and to also give things to them, and you're looking at them and you're thinking, you're mad. Like, you are a super duper human being. I cannot believe that you feel this way about yourself. Like, where does this come from? And then flipping that, you're like, oh, okay, maybe some of that applies the other way as well.
Yeah.
And so both the giving and receiving to, my fellow members is, it's really special. But what I love about those retreat days, and actually what BurnBright has given me as a whole, and the reason I was able to make some really quite wonderful, personal changes as a result of it, is space. And as I was reflecting back, obviously knowing this conversation was coming, one of the biggest game changers that BurnBright has given me, and I don't even know if we've talked about this actually, is space. Space to connect the dots. You do this sometimes to show that kind of pausing, stepping back and noticing. But I did that almost on a macro level, and I was able to connect dots. And something like the retreat day gave me the opportunity to connect dots that, looking back, had actually been there all along. I just hadn't had the space and the connection to what I wanted to see it myself. But yes, there's a comment about, yes, it's really funny meeting in person.
Yeah, absolutely.
After you've seen
it is really funny. Like, we didn't realize how short we all were. But it's also that sense of, the power of a hug. Sometimes it's like someone putting a hand on your shoulder when you're feeling a bit tearful, or just, in the first one, when there was only 3 of us, we're throwing a ball around in the garden and getting lost in the woods. And no names mentioned of the woman who got lost. It's just the power of the things we can do in person, but I really don't want to sort of undermine the power of the value of what we do in the online sessions as well, that there is emotion, there is feeling, there is space for everyone. And I love this word space as well. This is why I called my trip to Vietnam my spacious adventure, and why afterwards when I came home I was like, the BurnBrighters need this. So we are still working on making it happen, you and me and a bunch of other people in Vietnam next year, but it will happen. It will happen. I'm manifesting it. And I don't even believe in manifestation, but it's going to happen. That's the whole point of the power of what we can do, what we can achieve when we are actually consciously doing so in a spacious way, taking time to take breaks. That's what I was seeing. Look at what you have achieved. So sometimes people come into my world and they think, oh, you're going to make me not achieve things, because as if achievement is a bad word. And it's not. Ambition is not a bad word. It's just we want to do that sustainably, because you are coming from a background of absolute overworking, never had time to connect the dots. And now look at what you've done. Now you're a business owner. So do you want to finish our conversation today by thinking about that concrete ROI you've had of moving to the place you were always meant to be?
Yeah, gosh, that's a very good way to end, actually. But I do want to something that's important to get across, I think, is I was all of those things. I was, outwardly hugely successful. I was perfectionist, needing external validation, all that sort of stuff. And something we spoke about was good enough. And for years and years, good enough was never okay for me. The good enough is what other people did. And I can do so much more than good enough. And it is important to say, I think, that I am the most powerful that I've ever been. I'm the most congruent that I've ever been. And I'm hoping to be the most successful I've ever been. It's early days, but this is not about stepping back. I'm stepping in, but in a way that is sustainable. And so, I'm certainly not perfect. I was up at 3:00 in the morning thinking about an issue I've got, but what I do,
work in progress,
it's very much work in progress. And what I do now is whip out the journal, or notice that I need to whip out the journal, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, going from, that corporate background with, I don't think toxic workplace necessarily has a definition, but what I felt was a fairly toxic workplace that hadn't moved in the way that I wanted it to move quick enough. And hopefully, obviously, companies will get there, but I needed to step out of that corporate space for the time. And I now, I'm working. 8 years ago, I trained to be a PT. 6 years ago, I trained to be a personal trainer. 6 years ago, I trained to be a nutritionist and a spin instructor, but it was never the right career for me. Through space and time, over, November, December, January, I connected some dots, and I've ended up buying a boutique fitness studio in Southwest London. So I can bring my corporate background, the chief financial officer, HR stuff, understanding commercial stuff, to the fitness, nutrition, health piece. So so it's an amazing spin studio and HIIT studio called Doghouse Fitness. And I'm just loving it. I'm surrounded by people who add to my life rather than take away so much of who I am and just, squash me into their box. So now I'm surrounded by wonderful people, wonderful customers, wonderful trainers who dogs who I'm trying to make things, better for. And when I come up with these crazy ideas, I have an outlet to test them, to play with them, and a confidence to accept that things may not always go right. In fact, now that I'm a business owner, they often go wrong. But, it's dealing with problems all day long. But they're my problems, and they're problems that I care about hugely. So, we got to get you down to a spin class or a HIIT class at some point, or maybe a switch class.
I will take all my antihistamine and pet all the dogs. I don't care. I'll do the spin before I pet the dogs, just in case my asthma stops me from getting on the bike. But I just hearing you talk about it, how much has unlocked for you. Everything from that first email that you had to send to get a promotion, and once you stopped procrastinating that and sending that email, like that's ROI right there. Yeah. But this is a different ROI. This is you cannot put a price on that, of feeling like I'm finally where I'm meant to be with the people who light me up. It's kind of priceless. Sometimes it's hard when people ask me, how long would it take to get the financial ROI, get the money back on my investment? I'm like, well, it depends on how you see it. Like, how do you define success? How do you define it working? And sometimes we have some really tangible impact, like people increasing their salaries, getting to a higher paid job, or for some of the women in the group who've actually started to ask for their rates to be paid and working with more aligned clients. And for some, it's like literally, I now feel like I finally get to live the life that I want. And it's hard to put a price on that. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I can put a price on the first bit. So, the fact that we literally had one conversation and I would spend 10 minutes and sent an email to deal with that promotion and the, resulting salary. And, there was very real, definitely costs, well covered. But the real personal growth piece is I was so stuck, so convinced I was broken. I was a wrong human being. I wasn't able to fix. Why couldn't I fix myself to be like how I wanted to be? And that is invaluable. Now, knowing where we are or where I am, that's what it's truly unlocked for me, is feeling more me, whatever that is. And I still definitely procrastinate, but it's okay. And I've got
always going to do that, to be fair. I probably always will do that. And there's that sense of bring that noticing to it, noticing when you have done it, bringing out tools. So actually, is it going to help me to journal? Is it going to help me to do some of the more somatic exercises like the breathing or moving your body, like all the things you have in your compassionate toolkit now. So I think we really have to have that reality check. There's so many quite unqualified coaches out there who sell these fairy dreamland things of how you're going to be free from this and that now, like you never be anxious again. Whereas we know from the research and the evidence base that that's not how the human brain works. And I like that you keep going back to that as well, that me being a clinical psychologist who does the coaching has been helpful in the sense that I've never sold the dream castles because I'm ethically not allowed to. I can't overpromise and underdeliver. I have to say, well, your results will depend ultimately on lots of different factors, like what's going on in your context, what work are you willing to put in, and extenuating factors as well. This is why the 6 months allows for that. Maybe there's 1 month where, you all get struck down by the lurgy in your family, and then you can catch up. Whereas if it's a shorter program, if you have a couple of bad, rough weeks in that, or you feel like you're constantly behind. But how did that feel for you to, that all the calls were recorded and that you had the Facebook group alongside so that you can kind of ask for support or ask questions if you were stuck on anything? How did that feel?
I've said to you before, why aren't you sharing some of the Facebook group stuff? This support, the realizations that people have come to that they put in the Facebook group, calls can take a little while to percolate in our minds, and 90 you've got the 90-minute call, but then there's all the thinking that goes around that. And I think people were like, this stuff is gold. You should be showing people the support and the realizations. And you're like, no, I can't. It's not. I was like, scratch out the names. And she's like, no, it's a safe space. And yes, it is. But the Facebook, I hate Facebook, but for the benefit that it brings, your groups are the ones that I will keep Facebook downloaded for, because it is worth it to be part of that supportive community. And some of it's just hilarious. Some of it's, it's a combination of lighthearted versus some really deep realizations. And it can be one post after another, right? And what's beautiful is the group needs both, and it thrives off both. And I think the recordings are very, very helpful, but I have noticed that I try really, really hard to attend the group sessions live, because otherwise it does tend to just be something that I don't get round to. Many things like that, and I don't want it to happen to this. So to a certain extent, you do have to commit to, if you can commit to attending the 90-minute calls, I actually think for the majority of people, that will be groundbreaking enough.
That will be most of what you need.
That will be. And so, you include you should do this, and, there's maybe hours for journaling and stuff, and there is, but the 90-minute calls are where that's the goal dust, 3 weeks of a month. And then, So I think it's, well, that, this program has truly been transformational for me. And I can't recommend it enough. And, I don't think you shout about it enough, but I understand.
I don't, but it is, this is part of this kind of what I was thinking about the committing to something and why it is such a big investment. I've noticed that myself when I committed into a coaching program that helped me build right with my own coach, Polly Lavarello, who's incidentally telling me to go and do lives like we're doing right now. So we are all work in progress. I am just a few steps ahead of the women in the group container that I support, but I'm doing my own inner work. I'm doing my own progress. And part of that is, like you're saying, like, why don't I share more about it? Because it's that sense of holding myself back with the fear of, as a clinical psychologist, what am I allowed to share? So I'm really, really conscious of 2 C words and not the rude ones, consent and confidentiality. So that's why you're never going to see me go and like snapping things out of your DMs that you're not consented to. And I'm like, let's share this for promo. That's not really how I roll because it needs to feel safe. And I think that's why the group that we've been in has been so powerful, that people have been able to share deepest, darkest secrets in a way that's like actually really vulnerable. And other women have responded to that and given that compassion and kindness and connection. So I will share more about what happens in BurnBright, but that's the beautiful thing of if you're here telling your story, you're actually doing that with the consent and confidentiality. I can't do all of that, but you can. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I've noticed myself that when I have made a big investment in something, I have diarized all the calls. Like I did not miss any of the group coaching calls because I knew I'd made such a big investment in something. Whereas I've noticed to myself when I buy something for like 200 quid, I could easily kind of like, well, like, yeah, but it wasn't a big investment, so it's okay. And if you pull up together all those 200 quid things you purchased here and there, the self-help courses, the whatever that you didn't utilize, that's just gathering digital dust. I've got so many of them. They probably would easily amount to what I would have spent on a deeper, longer investment, and just do it properly once.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with that. At the gym, we give away, some freebie classes and stuff, and people just don't turn up because they don't value a freebie.
No.
So yeah, put your money where your mouth is. There's a reason that saying exists, I guess.
Yeah. Well, like I say, if you put your money behind the bar, you show up to drinks. It's like a minimum spend. You're like, right, we're going to have a good time. So yeah, and we do have a good time. That's the whole point of it, is that we do have a really good time. We have a laugh, we dance, I actually even sing. I'm waiting for all of you to sing as well. Maybe we do that on the next home retreat, the last one next week. So thank you so much for your time chatting to me, and maybe we'll do another one on the podcast, or maybe I'll put this on the podcast. So for those of you who haven't listened to the Pause Purpose Play podcast that was referenced, go over to that and listen to it right now. And if you want to have a chat with me about BurnBright, you can go to my bio and book a call. If you haven't already booked into my diary, I have time to speak to 2 people this afternoon and 3 people on Friday. The enrollment for BurnBright for this round closes on the 19th of April, and there are only 6 slots, and I'm already speaking to 3 or 4 different women who are interested. So not a lot of time left. So yeah, get a call booked in with me. If you don't know how to do that, just DM me. I don't bite. I can tell you what buttons to press. Sometimes that's a bit of a tech issue that people are like, where's this link to what the thing and to what not? I will help you, right? I am ADHD myself, so I try to make things as accessible as possible. So if you want to grab a spot, DM me and we'll get you set up. Thank you so much, Kylie, for your time today.
All right, Michaela. See you very soon.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.